A man buried his son, and then he did something no one in the territory had ever seen. He started planting a forest that was built entirely wrong, on purpose. Every neighbor for 20 miles thought he was losing his mind. 3 months later, that wrong forest was the only thing standing between a family and a storm that killed cattle inside barns. This is the story of Elias Ward, and the winter that made Windhaven Flats believe in something they couldn't explain. Autumn, 1886. Montana Territory. The wind out here doesn't visit, it lives here. And every family on Windhaven Flats knew exactly how to fight it. You stack sod, you haul stone, you nail board over board, and you pray the nails hold. That was the law of the land, unwritten but understood by everyone until the day Elias Ward broke it. He knelt in frozen dirt with a sack of saplings and started planting a windbreak, except he planted it wrong. Not in the straight, disciplined line every rancher in the county would have recognized, but staggered, crooked, gapped, bent back on itself like something drawn by a child or a madman. Freighters slowed their wagons just to stare. Nobody asked him why. They didn't need to. They'd already decided he'd cracked. His name was Elias Ward, 45 years old. He lived alone except for an old gray dog that never left his heel, not even to eat. Behind his cabin was a small grave, the wood marker already silvering with weather. Inside, on a peg by the door, hung a coat too small for any grown man to wear. He never took it down. He never explained it. When he came to town, he counted his coins into the store owner's palm, nodded once, and left. He didn't ask for credit. He didn't ask for sympathy. Men who have lost what he lost learn one thing fast: keep your hands moving or the silence will eat you alive. So his hands stayed busy. 73 saplings that first season, pine, cedar, whatever the thin soil would accept. He paced the distances by eye and instinct, some trees 4 feet apart, some 10, some clustered into loose rings that curled back toward each other like a spiral half-finished. He'd kneel, dig, measure with a knotted cord, move on. The dog watched from the disturbed earth like it understood something the town didn't. Children started throwing pebbles at him from a safe distance and calling him the orchard fool. The name spread through Windhaven Flats faster than the first frost. A man growing shade where no one needed shade. A man building a forest around a house he'd probably freeze to death inside come January. Silas Boone said it loudest, and in that valley, when Boone spoke, people listened. 50 years old, owner of the largest cattle herd for 50 miles, and, though he never said it directly, he had his eye on Ward's land for one simple reason. A spring ran through it that had never once dried up, not in 30 years. Trees don't stop wind, Boone told anyone who'd listen, usually over a drink at the store. A wall stops wind. Tucker Hale agreed, and Hale had raised half the barns standing in that county, so his word carried weight too. Saplings that thin, he said, will snap in the first real gale. Man's wasting good nails on kindling. They weren't wrong, not by anything the valley had ever seen before. But Ward never argued, he never explained. He bought his nails, walked home, and kept planting. He'd learned it from a dying man. Years before, a trapper named Pike, who'd wintered 40 seasons in those hills, told him, in a voice wrecked by the cough that would kill him within the week, about a hollow far to the north where the wind came down like a closed fist and simply died there. Stopped cold, vanished into the trees. "It ain't a wall the wind wants," Pike had rasped, gripping Ward's wrist harder than a dying man should have been able to. "A wall it can climb, or pile up against, and come over anyway. Give it something it has to fight through over and over, bend after bend after bend, and it gets tired. The cold looks for walls, boy. Don't give it one." Ward never forgot those words. He built an entire forest, crooked and strange and mocked by everyone who saw it, around a sentence spoken by a dying trapper nobody else in the valley remembered. The work aged him faster than the years should have. He rose before first light and knelt in frozen ground until his knees went numb and stayed numb, his fingers cracking and bleeding around the rough cord he used to measure. And somewhere in that first hard month, an 11-year-old boy named Tom Doyle, the fatherless son of the widow Hannah Doyle, started showing up to carry water for the saplings without being asked, without payment, without a word of explanation to his mother about why. The old gray dog took to trotting the rows beside him. The three of them worked mostly in silence, the way people do when the work says more than talk ever could. Once, only once, Tom asked, "Why do the rows bend that way?" Ward didn't look up from the dirt. "So the wind never runs straight." Then he went back to digging, and that was the only lesson the boy ever got, and somehow it was enough. The first real blow came in November, and it took the outer ring apart completely. A hard gust flattened a dozen young trees, snapped them clean at the root like they'd never been there at all. Boone laughed about it openly at the store, loud enough for half the street to hear. "Sticks against a storm," he said, and the men around him laughed with him. Ward didn't answer any of it. He walked his rows at dawn instead, alone, saying nothing to anyone, studying what the wind had actually done, not what he'd assumed it would do. He saw how the gust had funneled clean and straight through the even gaps he'd left, gathering speed instead of losing it, hitting the trees like a battering ram aimed by the land itself. So he replanted, tighter on the windward face, looser behind it, breaking the airflow into smaller, weaker pieces instead of one clean channel. It cost him 3 days and 40 new saplings he could barely afford. Boone watched him do it from horseback, at a distance, arms crossed. This time, Boone didn't laugh. Then Old Man Renner did the strangest thing anyone in Windhaven Flats had seen all year. Stranger, even, than the crooked trees. Renner was 70. He'd buried 2 wives and outlasted 3 winters that had killed stronger, younger men than him, and the whole valley trusted his read on weather the way other places trusted scripture. One gray, windless afternoon, he rode out to Ward's place alone, dismounted without a word, and walked the crooked rows in silence, hat in hand. He stopped at the center of one of the staggered rings, turned his weathered face north, and simply listened, the way a man listens for a sound he already half expects. He laid one hand flat against a bent, wind-scarred trunk, held it there a long moment, then mounted his horse and rode off without ever saying what he'd come to check. By December, the old gray dog stopped sleeping by the fire. Every night it dragged itself to the north wall of the cabin instead, ears up, alert, listening to something nobody else in that house could hear. The ice came early that year. The birds left before anyone noticed they were gone. And then the wind that never, ever stopped on Windhaven Flats, not for one single day in living memory, went utterly, unnaturally still. Renner stood on his own porch that evening, staring at a horizon that gave nothing away, and said to no one in particular, "It ain't coming, it's gathering." Ward walked his rows one final time before dark, not out of doubt anymore, but out of habit, the way a soldier checks a rifle he already knows is loaded. Then he went inside and shut the door. It hit before dawn. 58 miles an hour, snow so thick and so fast a man couldn't see his own outstretched hand in front of his face. In the Boone house, the finest, sturdiest house in the whole valley, frost crawled up the inside of the walls like something alive. They burned wood twice as fast as they'd rationed it, and the thermometer still read 41 degrees by morning. Cattle drifted blind against the fence lines and froze there standing up. That same freezing dawn, young Tom had been caught out on the open flats chasing down a strayed mare, and when the storm hit, it was Ward's lamplight in the distance he ran for, not his own home, not the church, not Boone's grand house, Ward's. Out on that crooked, mocked, laughed-at shelf of land, the wind hit the first ring of trees and split apart. It hit the second ring and slowed. By the time what was left of it finally reached the cabin walls, it arrived as a tired, spent thing, curling almost gently around the corners, and the snow it still carried piled itself into long, deliberate drifts, exactly where the crooked rows had been built to steer it. Inside, the old dog slept soundly for the first time in weeks. The boy read by lamplight, wrapped in a blanket he didn't even need. The thermometer on Ward's wall held steady at 61 degrees through the entire night. Once, only once, Ward opened the door, looked out at his strange working forest standing dark against the white, and closed it again without a word. He didn't smile. He simply nodded, the exact way a man nods when a debt he's carried a very long time is finally, quietly paid. When the storm broke 3 days later, Silas Boone trudged out through waist-deep drifts expecting to find a wreck, maybe worse. Instead, he found a warm cabin, a sleeping dog, a healthy boy, and a man who had lost everything he loved once and had spent every single day since refusing to lose anyone else the same way. "I was wrong," Boone said. Just that. Nothing more. He didn't need to say more. By the next spring, 2 families were out planting crooked rows of their own. Then 5. Then, eventually, nearly everyone on Windhaven Flats. Nobody called it the Orchard Fool's Forest anymore. They gave it a real name, a shelter belt, and that's still what they call it today, generations later, on land that still remembers a man who wouldn't explain himself. Elias Ward never beat the storm, not really. Storms can't be beaten. He simply understood something everyone else in that valley had missed. You don't stop the wind by standing against it. You tire it out. You make it bend and turn and fight its way through obstacle after obstacle after obstacle until it has nothing left to give when it finally reaches you. So here's what I keep coming back to. Was Ward actually brilliant? Some kind of hidden genius nobody in that town could recognize? Or was he simply the only man in Windhaven Flats willing to sit still long enough and hurt long enough to actually listen to what the land had been trying to tell everyone all along? Tell me what you think in the comments, and if this story moved you even a little, stay a while longer, because there's another one coming.